Thank you all for being here. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. We live in rather extraordinary times, if you think about it. We have, first of all, access to literally all of the world's great living traditions. This has never, ever, ever happened before, any time in history. So we are blessed to be able to, in a sense, experiment and mine the various ways that spirit in the past has chosen to make itself known. This is a challenge, and it's a threat. It's something that we want more than anything else, and it's something that we're frightened of more than anything else. If you're not frightened, you don't understand it. Oh, good. I wondered where you were. So it's really kind of a very, very delicate scale. And what always surprises me is that somehow, on balance, as you take, this is your life. These are the scales of your life. And if you get involved in spiritual practice, and you put the amount of good stuff in this pan, the bliss, the awareness, the insight, the understanding, and you put all the bad stuff in this pan, the bad stuff wins. It's just, I don't know how to tell you this. Did we get their money? Okay, yeah. So, it's one of the closest races you will ever see. Fortunately, however, we have God on our side. Unfortunately, however, we have egos. And we have self-contractions, and we have the separate self-sense. And part of the deepest, most difficult lesson that you can learn in spirituality is that the ego, just as it is fine. The self-contraction, just as it is fine. You're aware of that self-contraction right now. You are aware that in the very center of your awareness, all you're doing is contracting. The good news is that which is aware of the self-contraction is God. So what we want to be able to do today is talk about both sides of that street and ways that you can, to some extent, tip the scales in your favor. And also look at some of the ways that you are, all of us are, inherently dedicated to not waking up. And that we know that that's the case because it's winning. And so the empirical evidence is right there. On the other hand, the fact that we are here joined together in this extraordinary adventure, and that we have graced to have in our presence not only some of the world's greatest pandits, but also some of the world's greatest gurus. I'll be the pandit. We're all basically pooling what understanding, what resources we have in order to engage in, arguably, the greatest adventure there is. And that's the adventure of consciousness, the adventure of waking up, the adventure of going so deep into yourself that you stumble and fall into infinity. And under those circumstances, there's a new destiny that arises from consciousness. And this destiny is one of all the kinds of pain and suffering, plus bliss, plus ecstasy, minus your fundamental objection to life. And that's really quite an extraordinary thing to realize that you can do without. And also, we want to thank Andrew, of course, very much for being here.
Thank you.
And I know that one of the great things about being a pioneer, the politically incorrect definition of a pioneer, you all know that, it's the guy with all the arrows in his back. And that's fundamentally what any of us are doing. They're trying to push the envelope. We're fundamentally running into the stresses and strains of actual cosmic reluctance. Because what's being laid down are actually structures of consciousness. These are actually being created right now. They're not Platonic gibbons that drop down from heaven. They are structures that we build every time we engage in a thought that's just a little bit higher than the thought we had a moment before. Or an activity that's just a little bit more noble than the activity we engaged in a moment before. Or when we transmit our own state, and it's a transmission that's a little bit deeper than what you were transmitting a moment before. Under those circumstances, cosmic habits are built up, cosmic memories are built up. And so that's fundamentally what we're engaged in. It's an extraordinary, extraordinary adventure. I can't think of anything like it. So, try not to screw it up. And that's going to look mighty bad on your tombstone. Screwed up turquoise, right when it could have been. So, one of the great things, one of my favorite exercises from Quaker prayer gatherings is that we get very quiet, and then the exercise was, let the next sentence out of your mouth be from your very highest self. Everybody gets very quiet at that point. But that's the kind of attitude, in a sense, you want to try to bring to these dialogues, where we're all going to try to touch into that deepest and highest place in ourselves. And of course, it doesn't necessarily have to be profound. If there's issues coming up, that's fine. We can address those as well. So with that, I'll pause and see if Andrew wants to add anything, and then we'll just sort of jump in and take this in any direction that you want to take it.
Well, I'm not sure exactly how you put it, but I think about 2 or 3 minutes ago you were speaking about what it would mean to give up our refusal to do for two things. One was to transcend our almost pathological engagement with our narcissistic inclinations.
Yep.
So what would it be like to truly give that up and to be so serious about it that it wasn't even a joke anymore?
Yeah.
That maybe it became one of the most serious things we needed to do. But the reason that we would be striving to do that would be so that we would really be able to take up the ultimate challenge and the ultimate adventure that you were speaking about, which, to put it in a very, I think, simple way, is to literally create the future ourselves. Because as you were describing, and as you have spoken about and written about quite a bit, that that the past has already happened, but the future has yet to be determined, and it's going to be. And what's, of course, exciting about this, especially in the time we're living in, is that the structures that lay in front of us don't exist yet, and that is literally up to us as individuals together, to literally create those new structures. And the degree to which we realize that's actually true is the degree to which we recognize that the future literally depends upon each and every one of us, not metaphorically. Ken was speaking very passionately about the fact that on one hand it's the most exciting time to be alive. Literally is the most exciting time. It's because of how much we know. We've never known so much. Never. It's never happened. And we've never known so much as we do today. We know more today than we did yesterday. So human beings have never known so much and have had the potential to know so much. And yet at the same time, I don't think that we have ever been aware of how much the future literally does depend upon the choices that we make. So the degree to which, on an individual level, we are willing to let the absolute uncompromising truth of that actually hit us, I think will mean just about everything about the kind of person we're going to be, about the kind of relationship to life we're going to have, and about ultimately what kind of difference we're going to be able to make in real time starting today. So it's a deadly serious matter. And so what I'm very excited about and very interested, and in my dialogues with Ken, it's what we're almost always speaking about, is how enlightenment itself is evolving. You know, as human understanding develops, so does our understanding of even the meaning and definition of enlightenment evolve and develop. So now as we begin to understand what enlightenment means in an evolutionary developmental context, we begin to see, and we can go into more what that means, you know, later, but we begin to see that it means less and less about transcending the world merely, and more about embracing the creative dimension of what it means to literally create the cosmos. I'm often fond of saying that up until very recently, I think that God, or the creative principle, is something that we were asking for help from. Often if we were in trouble, if as an individual we were in trouble, or if our family was in trouble, or our tribe was in trouble, or our nation was in trouble, we would often look up to the heavens, you know, assuming there's anybody up there. But anyway, and asking for help, for support, for intervention. And I believe we've literally reached that time in history when God, or the creative principle, or the energy and intelligence that created the universe, is now completely and totally dependent upon us, and or those of us that have reached that level of development. We're actually able, at least on a cognitive level, of beginning to appreciate that that is actually true.